Every neighborhood has a heartbeat, a place that represents the cultural epicenter of the area at its core. In Boston's historic North End, that place is Boston Barber and Tattoo Company. Boston Barber and Tattoo Company has become home to A-list Boston celebrities like Gordon Hayward, Milan Lucic, Brad Marchand, and Aaron Baines. Boston Barber and Tattoo is more than just Boston's most well-known corner barbershop. It's also a tourist attraction for the hundreds and thousands of people that visit the North End throughout the year. Boston Barber and Tattoo, a North End landmark that represents the cultural epicenter of the area at its core, located at 113 Salem Street.
Welcome to another edition of the Good and Plenty podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Goodman, and as usual, we got a good show for you today. Today we have CBS analyst, studio host, does everything, Clark Kellogg, and we'll talk to Clark about the tournament, the changes with the tournament, what he thinks is going to happen with Zion Williamson, with Will Wade, how the committee's going to handle those. We'll also talk to him about his NBA career and the fact that most people do not realize Clark Kellogg was a killer in the NBA before he got hurt. He had some knee injuries, but averaged 20 and 10 as a rookie in the NBA. Most people, again, did not realize that. Remember, today's show brought to you by betonline.ag. Go to clnsmedia.com/win. Use the promo code CLNS50 to get a 50% bonus on your next deposit. Today's show also brought to you by The Athletic. Get 40% off your monthly subscription just by going to theathletic.com/Goodman. So Champ Week is here. We're recording this podcast Monday morning, and we've already got a ton of, a good amount of tickets punched, and we'll have plenty more. I'll be headed off to a Big 12 tournament for a day, and then I'm going to head to Chicago for the Big 10 tournament, and Doug Gottlieb and I will be doing a Selection Sunday special on Stadium right after the brackets are unveiled. So make sure you catch that on watchstadium.com. You can also obviously subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher. You can find us on CLNS Media. You can find me at Goodman Hoops on Twitter. And please give us your reviews, anything good, bad, indifferent about the pod, what you like, what you hate. Don't worry, I have thick skin, so you can certainly write in whatever you want there. But now, pleased to welcome in the lead voice of the NCAA tournament. That is CBS's Clark Kellogg. Clark, I appreciate you joining me on a Monday morning. Monday morning, bright and early.
Yeah.
We're recording this.
Yeah, man. Yeah, glad to be able to jump on with you, Jeff.
Don't you completely lose track of days this time of year? Like you have no idea what day it is.
Yeah, no idea exactly where you are. You lose track. You mix teams and players on teams because you're digesting so much information in a short time. I try to mitigate that by watching teams all year long so I get a handle on some of the teams like Gardner-Webb or the Missouri Valley Conference teams, although, heck, in that league you had Bradley and Northern Iowa play for the championship when Loyola and Drake had been the two top teams, was really more familiar with them. But, again, it's all great fun, and I love the preparation involved in the work, and the joy of the game is as special as it gets to me.
So I want to start by going back, way, way, way back, all right? Well, listen, I'm interested because I don't think a lot of people realize how dominant a player you were when you were healthy. And coming out of Ohio State, drafted in the lottery, averaged 20 and 10 as a rookie with the Pacers, and then knee issues. I think you played 4 seasons?
Yeah, 3 on the books for 5, but really only played a little more than 3 in terms of game volume. Yeah.
What happened? What was it exactly with your knee, and why did you choose to just kind of, you mailed it in? I don't want to say mailed it in, but you didn't try to get a paycheck for maybe 6-7 years like some guys do.
You know what happened? I couldn't, Jeff. I really couldn't. At the time when I got hurt back in the mid-'80s, wearing away the cartilage on the inside, the medial side of the knee, was problematic. A number of guys have been able to return since then because of the advancement and treatment and surgical procedure and rehab and the total training regimen that guys undergo now is so significantly different than what was available or known or standard back in the mid-'80s. It's much like anything else with progress. There's some evolution, there's improvement. But anyway, I wore away the inside cartilage of my left knee, and after 3 arthroscopies on that knee and the rehab that I did afterwards, my knee just couldn't stand up to the rigors of being an NBA player. And I did everything I knew and our trainers and doctors knew at the time to try to get back out on the court, but it became pretty apparent that if I couldn't do pickup basketball, there was no way I was going to do NBA basketball. So I had to retire in August of '87. I just turned 26. Very challenging, difficult time because I got to the NBA at 21, having left after my junior year, and had a promising career moving forward, and was excited about the possibilities of being maybe an all-star caliber player or a player on a winning team at some point, but it just wasn't meant to be. Thankful for as long as I got to play what the game has given me. But, I had to shut it down at 26 and got my broadcasting start probably a month after I retired with the Indiana Pacers on radio, and that led to some other opportunities and ultimately to where I am now. But it was a hard loss at 26 to give up what my joy was and what my real passion had been, playing the game. But I'm thankful God gave me the opportunity to realize a dream. He's continued to look after and care for me as I've yielded my life to him since 1986 as a Christ follower and Christian. So if I had to lose basketball to gain what I've gained in God through Christ, then that's beyond a win-win.
How long did it take you, Clark, to come to grips with the fact that at 26, everything you had kind of worked for at that point, didn't come to fruition?
You know what? It was a process.
Yeah,
I can't highlight a significant moment, but again, I had to retire in August of '87. I had given my life to Christ in November of '86. So I didn't know exactly what my future held, but I was confident and secure in who held my future.
Yeah.
God through faith in Christ. And I got an opportunity, Jeff, which I think is the hand of God in many ways, to stay in the game as a broadcaster in a capacity that suited my aptitude, my interest in words, my approach to the game. I always kind of saw myself as a student of the game, as somebody that was a smart player. And so to have a chance to carve out a career in this aspect of the game as a broadcaster was a wonderful gift and fit. But there still were times, you're 26 and you're behind the microphone. You're 27, you're 28 behind the microphone. Your knee is feeling good because you're not playing.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, I could be out here taking these guys to the basket or
no
bringing
doubt.
them up. So that part of it still, but over time, that gradually diminished.
Yeah.
And it was really about, hey, that chapter is over. It was a really great chapter. It didn't quite end the way you wanted to, but there's been really great things coming out of that I wouldn't trade anything for.
No, listen, you handle yourself with the utmost class, and you always have. I actually interviewed you. You don't remember this, but I interviewed you back when you were with the Pacers. I don't know how old I was. I was
wow.
Yeah, I was young. I was in high school.
Really?
I did. I have it on tape. I have it on tape. I'll try to bring it. I have it in one of those little micro cassette tapes. That's how we're going to age ourselves.
That would be awesome.
I'm going to find it.
Track that down.
I'm going to try to find it and bring it. I'll bring it to Minneapolis this year. We can share a laugh when you hear my voice, which probably hadn't even changed at that point.
That would be probably my kids, all the adults now, but I think they would get a kick out of that.
I'm sure they would.
Get a kick out of that.
Hey, what was it like having to replace Billy Packer? He was kind of a legend. He had called 30-plus Final Fours, and you get stuck in there with the unenviable task of having to replace Billy Packer, who was flammable, but entertaining, informative.
Yeah.
You know, what was that like?
I tell you, it was something I aspired to when I became a broadcaster. Once I saw that this was something I could do and do well, it's like playing. You want to get to the highest level you can get to. You want to be your very best. And so I always aspired to have that opportunity when it came about. Billy's a Hall of Famer in every sense of the word as a broadcaster. Very, very sharp. Always enjoyed not just him as an on-air commentator, but in some of our seminars and times we would have a chance to interact. He always had thoughtful, meaningful things to say. And
strong opinions.
And always, and always well researched and thought out.
Yeah.
Never really, shooting off the cuff. He always had done tremendous homework and always caused you to think. And usually you were better for it. So I had great respect and admiration for him. And I never really thought, I did initially because of his long history of excellence in that role, that I was the next guy behind an icon in that space. I mean, he covered my games when I was in college and many other guys. So that part of it was mildly daunting, but I think much like when you play, you start to think more about how can I do this and what an honor and opportunity and privilege it is to try to step into it and serve the game and your colleagues well in doing it. And that's how I approached it. It was a wonderful 5-year run for me out there with Jim, and Steve Kerr joined us for a couple of years, and Tracy Wolfson and our producer and director team, Bob Deacon's and Bob Fishman, and even Mark Wolf. So, I enjoyed it, thoroughly enjoyed it. It was really a high watermark for me to have a chance to be part of calling, 5 championship games for that period of time from 2009 to 13. So I'm grateful to have had that opportunity to have engendered that kind of confidence from our decision makers. So no, it was a good run.
So the big news in regards to the production of Selection Sunday, Richard Deitch tweeted it yesterday from The Athletic. They're reverting back. No more like last year. The alphabetical, divulging the alphabetical list of the teams. We're going back to the brackets. Thank God. That's all I have to say, Clark.
Yeah. Well, that says a lot. Yeah, sometimes it's neat to try different things, and I have no problem or no issue with going different directions, trying to be creative, looking at it differently. That's always, and part of that willingness to do that is sometimes you realize that maybe you should revert back to what's worked in the past. So the partnership with Turner now, and I want to say this will be our 9th Final Four together. I think 2011 was the first one. So I think this is our 9th year together. And so now we're back to the show as I recall doing it a number of years ago. And it'll be fine. It'll be fine. Looking forward to it. It's always nice to see who's in and who's not, and then start talking about matchups and that 3-week run to a championship.
Quick break to tell you today's show is brought to you by betonline.ag. Lots of good NBA games coming up this week to throw some money on. Go to betonline.ag today to get in on the action. Want some free money? I know it's not going to pay out much, but the Pacers host the Knicks on Tuesday. Take the money line. The Knicks are tanking for Zion. They aren't going to want to win this one. The Lakers are in Toronto Thursday night. No Brandon Ingram, no Lonzo Ball. LeBron on a minutes restriction. Lock it in. Raptors are going to win this one. BetOnline.ag is CLNS Media's preferred online sportsbook. Go to clnsmedia.com/win to get a 50% bonus when you sign up, or use the promo code CLNS50. Do not be left on the sideline with all this excitement going on the court. Plus, you can bet in BetOnline's virtual casino and make some money there too. March Madness is almost here. The best time of year. Well, it's kind of here, but Selection Sunday is Sunday. We're talking multiple games every single day to win some money on. The teams, obviously, you got the underdogs, I'll give you the 4-13s, the 5-12, so pay attention later in the week. I'll hit on a couple of those. So whatever you want to do, make sure you use betonline.ag. Use the promo code CLNS50 for a 50% bonus in your first deposit. Or go to clnsmedia.com/win. Do we put too much into the bubble? You think? Like, I think about that every year at a certain point, right? We're talking about the bubble so much instead of the teams that have earned their way in. I mean, I guess it's just natural because you want to find out, like, who's going to make it, who's not. That's the key. You know, everybody knows, you know, whatever, a lot of these teams, you know, are going to be in that 4 to, you know, Buffalo, whether they get a 6 or a 7 isn't the end of the world. But, you know, is Indiana going to make it? Is TCU going to make it? Or Belmont and Lipscomb going to get in now?
Yeah. You know what? I think there are a number of elements that make the tournament as special as it is. And I think part of it is the conversation because it is a finite number of at-large opportunities, only 36. You and I and anybody who follows college basketball can lock down probably 25 to 30 of those teams with pretty good certainty and confidence. But the other 6 or 8 will be amongst a dozen teams perhaps that look like they might be worthy. So I think that does warrant a little more attention because it's not a given. It's still up in the air. It's still undecided. It's part of that excitement, that win or go home type of mentality, which is part of the 3-week run too. Once the field is determined, the best teams, as you and I well know, and any other fans that follow the game know, don't always win, don't always advance because of the nature of the game. So I think the various elements, the discussion leading up to Selection Sunday, which tends to tilt towards those teams on the stoop or bubble. I think that's natural and normal. Where teams are going to be seeded is another conversation, particularly at the top. I think the middle is the middle, but at the top, the 1, 2, 3, 4 lines, people tend to get pretty enamored with talking about that. So no, I don't think we overdo the bubble talk. I think the fact that it's every day or every week is too much. I won't. I don't look at it other than every week and a half. I just refuse to.
Well,
I don't follow.
Here's the problem. Everybody asks you. I'm sure you get it too. Like, is Indiana in today? Is TCU in today? Like, I get it all the time, tweets, whatever. Right. And you want to just say to them, like, you realize there's a ton of other moving parts right now. It's not as simple as are they in today, because even if TCU wins a game in the Big 12 tournament, well, what if Indiana wins too? What if there's so many these moving parts that you can't say.
That's why I don't do the daily updates. I mean,
you're smarter than me.
I'll just kind of glance at them because our research plans put them good. But even then, I won't look at them but every 3 or 4 days because in reality, you're right. Until all the hay is in the barn with these teams that are on the stoop, we won't know what's going to happen. It can fluctuate a touch, but not much. And then ultimately it comes down to what happens on Selection Sunday anyway. So I tend to start zeroing in on really who are the legitimate bubble teams based on what happens in these conference tournaments. I mean, you get a couple of bids stolen and that stoop contracts. Then it becomes easier to discount some of these teams that may be in the conversation prior to that. So I tell you what, those teams that are kind of on the outside looking in and feel they're in a precarious position need all of the favorites to win the conference tournaments. They don't need somebody in the MAC beating Buffalo. They don't need Gonzaga going down. They don't need a surprise in one of the other power conferences. They need pretty much at-large worthy teams to win the automatic bids in their respective conferences.
So where do you stand? I'm really strong about some of these mids and lows this year getting in over the. And again, obviously, it depends on what the Indianas, what the TCUs do in their league tournaments. But if they don't fare well, NC State, Clemson, some of these teams, I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy, but I just feel like the bubble is so lackluster in a sense that these teams got so many opportunities, some of them, and they hit on some, but their league records are not exactly overwhelming by any means. So if you're giving it to me, I'm saying, like, give me Belmont, give me Lipscomb, give me UNC Greensboro if they don't win tonight. Give me those teams over Indiana, TCU, unless, again, if Indiana goes on a crazy run here, I'm in, that's fine. They earn it. TCU, same thing. But if they bow out in the first round of their league tournaments, NC State, whatnot, give me the little guys. I'm just more interested to see them, Clark.
Yeah. No, my bent has always been in that direction. Mediocre power conference versus excellent mid-major conference team. I would tend personally and subjectively to lean in that direction. Now, if I was on the committee, I would have to temper that subjectivity based on the responsibility you have.
Sure.
But still, my bent is towards seeking to give those mid-major teams a really good shake. And so there are a number of teams, a few anyway, that fall into that category this year. And it will be interesting to see. And, sometimes the committee, I can remember when Air Force got an at-large bid kind of out of nowhere one year. Worthy, deserving, surprising, but you never know how the temperature in that room works and what the landscape looks like with the major conference bubble team. So, again, it's a group of 10, and if there are enough folks that feel strongly, then you ultimately can see that. And this would be a really good year to see that happen because the quality of the teams, the Belmonts, certainly Wofford, if they're not able to win their conference championship. Who else? There's another team. Who else am I leaving?
Well, Lipscomb certainly.
Lipscomb, right? Yeah, Lipscomb going down to Liberty. Yeah, Lipscomb will be in that conversation. I would. Old Dominion had another bad. I mean, if they had not lost a couple of games, they would have been. But I think they may have hurt themselves in that regard. But they were a team that I kind of had.
Well, Toledo, Clark, Toledo and the MAC.
Toledo and the MAC would certainly be in that list of teams that you look at and say, hey, who else? I tell you, I've watched Cal Irvine quite a bit. Now, I don't think they have any realistic.
Who's that?
But again, in terms, Cal Irvine.
Yeah. Russell Turner's going to.
Yeah. I mean, yes, they've got a really good team out there. Hofstra has had a phenomenal year. So those would be the teams that I kind of circle that would be maybe at least. I mean, everybody that wins their conference or shares their conference regular season title automatically gets on the consideration board in that committee room. And we also know that they're automatically qualified for the NIT, but they automatically get put up in the at-large pool if you've won your regular season conference. So those teams will be there. How much consideration they get to move forward becomes the question. And only a few of those teams, I think, would warrant extensive discussion.
I rarely have a major issue with the committee.
Same here.
To me, it's splitting hairs. These 10 people, first of all, number one, the time they put in, not getting paid $1 is insane to me. Insane.
Yeah.
I would pay these. I would pay them something to me because they're watching every night.
Some of those committee members, them too, would probably decline the payment.
Yep,
I mean, they look at it as a responsibility and duty and service to the game, and that's admirable and noble. And as much as people might be cynical of that, I do really believe, and I'm like you, I really respect the commitment, the level of work and time put in, and the job they desire to do. So I rarely have any. As a matter of fact, I never have any major issues. You could always have mild disagreements, but it's never anything that's going to make my hair stand up because of the difficulty in the work. Yeah.
And they're 10 human beings. Like, that's what I think people forget in this is they all have kind of different ways of looking at this, right? I mean, one may rely on the net more than the other, the new metric this year.
Yes.
One may like the KPI, Kevin Pauga's formula. Mm-hmm. One may have seen a certain team look terrific. Oklahoma, let's take Oklahoma for example. They may have seen Oklahoma twice in person look terrific, and miss some of their other, subpar performances. So it's human nature here. Like, I think people don't understand that aspect of it, that it is, 10 people looking at it a little bit differently, each one of them relying on different factors and metrics. And, some might be looking at the eye test more than others, whatnot. So I don't know. I just feel like people hammer them.
You're exactly right, Jeff. Yeah, you're exactly right. And it's not that one person can sway the room.
That's right.
It's a combination. You can make your case for a team, and that might influence the rest of the committee members. But ultimately, it comes down to a majority vote. And depending on which teams are being voted on, some of the committee members can't vote.
That's right.
Whether they're an athletic director or a conference commissioner. So it really is a democratic process influenced by personal differences, which I think is important. The human element, the point you make, is vastly underrated and undervalued. I mean, they all, the general population wants to look at these folks as if they're computers, but they're not. They're people, and that's part of what makes it what it is, in my opinion.
One more break to tell you today's show is brought to you by The Athletic. If you haven't heard about The Athletic by now, you must be living under a rock. These guys have been killing it. They've been doing it with specific local coverage with beat guys. They've been doing it with national guys and everything in between. So make sure you take a look at The Athletic. There's no pop-ups, no ads, just high-quality content waiting behind every single click. NBA, Zach Harper, Frank Isola, Shams Charania, Sam Amick. We've had about 3 of those guys on our pod. College, you got Seth Davis, Dana O'Neill, Brian Hamilton. You got Sam Vecini when it comes to NBA draft. You can't get content like this anywhere else. 600 to 750 new articles every week. Who else is pushing out quality content like this? No one. If you haven't signed up yet, take advantage of this deal because it's not going to last forever. Go to theathletic.com/Goodman to get 40% off your monthly subscription. That's a subscription for less than $3 a month just by going to theathletic.com/Goodman. Shams, Amick, Harper, Seth Davis, Dan O'Neill, Brian Hamilton, Sam Vecini, all for less than $3 a month. Sign me up. Sign yourself up too. Athletic.com/Goodman. All right, I'm going to put you on the spot. Without seeing the bracket, give me your team. Give me your team right now that you just feel more confident about than any other heading into right now conference tournament play. And I know it can change in the next week. Obviously, Zion can change that for Duke in a heartbeat. But what's the team you just have confidence in the most right now?
Well, Jeff, I think Gonzaga has the best blend of everything.
Me too.
In terms of talent, experience, multiple ways to win, coaching, everything that you would look at on a grid box to check for championship potential. I think they have it more than anybody else. Virginia would be a team that I look at, in part because I'm thinking the drive from what transpired last year, being the first one to be beaten by 16, can create a kind of resolve and hunger that's hard to duplicate. And DeAndre Hunter was unavailable in last year's tournament. I just think, and they're really good. So I like Virginia. Tennessee, I like the maturity and physicality of that team. Love the guard play. The size issue is a little bit of a challenge because length and athleticism looks like it can bother Grant Williams and Schofield a touch. But they might not face a team like that until they got to Minneapolis, maybe. Who knows? So those are 3 that I really like. And obviously Duke has great talent. The only thing that gives me pause, not only Zion and how healthy is he and how effective is he when he comes back, but the youth. Yeah. Duke's youth can show up. And in the crucible of a one and done, that can be enough to cost you against a team that would be able to stay in front, keep them out of transition, keep them off the glass. And there are only a couple of teams that would have a chance to do that. They might overcome it anyway, but that's the only thing that gives me a little pause about Duke. And, a dark horse for me is Florida State.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah. They had a terrific run, and most of those guys are back from last year. They've got a lot of bodies, a lot of athleticism.
They do.
And I think
lot of really good players. Shooters. Yeah, a lot of really, not a star, but a lot of really good players who buy in.
Well, Kevin Gelly would be a star if he played 30 minutes a game, 32 minutes a game. He's a monster.
He is.
So again, that's a team that if you want somebody off the beaten path a little bit, at least from not looking at the brackets, and I love Houston. I love what
they guard. Johnson. They do guard, don't they?
They guard and rebound, and obviously they can get it going. Scoring, then they could be really difficult. And how about Michigan State, man? With Tom and that. Come on, that's
incredible coaching
job. That's ridiculous.
Yes,
it is. It's remarkable. It is absolutely remarkable, and I'm gonna try to beat that drum a little more going down the road because I don't think it's been sounded enough.
No, because you know what?
What
we take them for granted.
Yeah, that's a good point.
There's certain coaches that we take for granted, and other ones, again, listen, I've been beating the Chris Beard drum all year, and rightfully so. Rightfully so. But, you like we're talking about, a guy like Tom Izzo. What about Tony Bennett? What about Tony Bennett?
Oh, no. I mean, you can go, hey, man, you
right.
can go on and on. Me and Seth were talking about this yesterday. We're trying to talk with coaches. I got like 25 guys, and I'm probably just scratching the surface.
Yes.
In terms of guys that warrant that kind of recognition.
Yep.
And it's not always about just exceeding expectations.
No doubt.
It's about dealing with the adversity that comes within the season. Whatever it might be, there are multiple dimensions you look at in terms of coaches doing great jobs, and there's a ton of them out there that have done bang-up jobs this season.
I'm with you on Gonzaga, Virginia. I talked to Mark Few, and I mean, Killian Tilly's going to come back, it sounds like, unless there's some sort of setback here. He's going to come back for the WCC tournament. And I think the goal, if they can get 12, 15 quality minutes out of him, and it's funny, I was talking to Few so much about, like, what this means for the team, right? Like, that's all I could think about. And he stopped me, and he's like, I'm just happy for the kid. Like think of what this kid has gone through the last year or so, not being able to play in the tournament last year, getting hurt, and them getting knocked out, and this year really being a shell of himself when he came back for about a month. And he's like, think of how hard this is for that kid to watch this team have as much success as they're having, and he's not really feeling like he's a major part of it. So he's right. He's right. And that kid can change their team.
Yeah, no, for sure.
All right, so you asked Bernard Muir yesterday, the committee chairman, two questions that I think are going to be the two most hot-button questions going into Selection Sunday, and that's number one is Zion. And maybe it won't be hot-button because if Zion comes back and returns to Zion form and Duke wins the ACC tournament, I think then that question's already answered of their number one seed, right? We agree there?
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Yeah, if they roll through the ACC, then clearly they would want staying on the one line. Yeah.
Coach K has said he expects Zion to be back, but this was a day-to-day injury now, 3 weeks ago? Day-to-day. He still hasn't played.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I hope he comes back. I think everybody wants him to come back because, again, he's such a fun player to watch. And I just – and again, this is speculation, which I don't love doing. But in this case, it's a lot of people around that family probably telling him, shut it down, agents, whatnot. And I hope they allow Zion Williamson, who clearly loves to play basketball, loves Duke, loves college basketball, let him make his own decision in this one. And if he's ready, let him play. Because I think it'd be hard to tell a kid like this, well, you can't play. You can't play in the NCAA tournament even if you're healthy. You can't play in the ACC tournament even if you're healthy. Like, there's some – like I tell people, Ben Simmons didn't come over here to play in a Final Four. He came over here to play in the NBA. He had to play college basketball for the most part. I mean, I guess he could have stayed overseas. But he didn't grow up. He told me this. He didn't grow up watching college basketball. Zion did. And that's the difference. And to take that away from this kid, and I'm not saying they're trying or gonna, but I hope they don't. I hope the agents haven't gotten to the family, I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, you know what? Your skepticism is well-founded based on what's transpired and what's whirling around. And I'm with you. Again, ultimately, I trust that Zion will make the decision. I mean, he's of age. He knows where his heart is and what his body tells him. And that would be my hope, that he would make the decision that he feels he should make for him, whatever that is. And that's his call. And if it ends up being that he plays, that would be great. If he chooses on his own volition, after thinking about what's in his heart, what's going on with his body and what's in his head that he should not, then I'd respect that as well. I would never tell anybody in this situation what to do. I would just lay it out and trust them to let them make that decision, because it's their decision to make. If it was my kid, that would be the case. If it was my kid in this situation, it wouldn't be about It would be about what do you want to do? What's in your heart? What do you feel strongly about doing? And then support him in that decision. So we'll see how it plays out, and we'll know when we know.
Yep. Bernard didn't answer the Will Wade question. You kind of threw it at him. You guys did, and he answered the Zion part of it. I think he just forgot to answer the Will Wade part of it, to be honest. Or maybe he was being smart. He is the Stanford AD, and he sidestepped that one right now. I don't know. But Will Wade's availability now, we don't know. It's in question. He's suspended indefinitely by LSU. It's going to be hard for me to imagine they're going to be able to do a thorough investigation and feel great about this to reinstate him. Maybe I'm wrong. But to me, it looks like it's going to be hard to see him coach in the SEC tournament at this point, with everything kind of hanging over his head and LSU's head. How do you evaluate this LSU team without the coach that helped get him there?
Well, I think you just have to watch how they perform on the floor, quite honestly, Jeff. I think that's what it's going to take. And they'll have ample opportunity, assuming they can win, play a couple of games in the SEC tournament. If he continues to be suspended, then you'd like to see a little more body of work. They've won a game against a Vanderbilt team that has really had a tough year with the injury to Garland. But I think you just try to evaluate who they are now without Will Wade on the sideline, and hopefully you get 2 or 3 more games to see that. I think that's the only way the committee can go on this. It's unfortunate, the cloud that's going to continue to hover around college basketball and these drips and trickles as we move forward with the trials and so forth. But my hope is that ultimately it leads to a phoenix from the ashes. Once the ashes and the fire is all settled, that there would be a rise up to a greater standard of integrity and operating and a cleaning up of some of the dirty parts of the game.
You think the only way that happens, Clark, is if some big names get hit here, and we're talking Will Wade now.
I'm big on the innocent not being punished, and the innocent not being punished, and the guilty not being acquitted. So in other words, if there's guilt there, those people need to be brought to justice. If there's violations, corruption that's attributable to coaches, big name or not, they need to be brought to consequence. And don't smudge or besmirch those who are innocent, but if hands are dirty, then they need to be punished. And that ultimately is what I hope happens.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I feel like on this one, it's almost too bad it didn't happen much earlier in the season or after the season with LSU, because you don't want.
We can't control you can't control the timing of it. Obviously, much in life is messy and uncertain and untidy, and this obviously is of that caliber of stuff. So it's going to play out how it does. But again, you hope the end result is a better place when all the dust settles.
Before I let you go, last thing, I've gotten to know Charles Barkley a little bit over the last few years, and one of my favorite people I've ever met, because honestly, more than anything, Clark, he's just so genuine. And I've seen him in different environments, walking through hotel lobbies, stopping for everybody, dripping with sweat as he walks through a hotel lobby. He's just, listen, this is a guy, I remember the first time I met him was probably 4 or 5 years ago at a Final Four party, and he came up to me and introduced himself, and I'm like, how the hell do you know who I am? Like, why do you know who I am? And what's it like working with Chuck? And give me maybe your funniest Chuck story, if you can. One of your funniest. I'm sure you have many.
Well, you hit on what is part of his great appeal, and it's his being authentically authentic, and he's always been that way. There's nothing pretentious about him. There's nothing egotistical about him. He's a really good-hearted guy who enjoys people, and people enjoy him. And I think it goes back to him being genuine, comfortable in his own skin, authentic in his own skin, gracious with people and to people. And that's a wonderful quality to have. And in working with him, that comes out. There's a mutual respect that we have. I'm a couple years older than Chuck. And he often tells the story that his college coach highlighted a couple of NBA guys when he was contemplating leaving to take a look at him. I think it was me and Dantley and John Drew, because we were kind of undersized blend forwards at that time.
Sure.
And so he had a really great respect for my game. And then as we've gotten to know each other, we have mutual respect for each other as men and people. So he's naturally funny, and he's got so many stories that are just hilarious. And there's too many to recount. Although we did have this one exchange about small soap at one of the hotels. And I can't give you any more details than that, but you can just imagine where that went.
Yeah.
In an off-air soliloquy that lasted for about 4 or 5 minutes. And 75-80% of it was everybody in tears, crying and laughter.
Listen,
that's the best I can give.
No, that's good. That's good. Chuck, listen, the best thing he gave me was Friedman shoes in Atlanta.
What happened there?
I didn't know. I just didn't know about it. I didn't know about Friedman shoes.
That tip. Oh, yeah.
And I'm size 15, Clark. So like Friedman shoes.
Oh, wow. There you go.
Every time I go to Atlanta now, I'm going to Friedman shoes. Every single time.
Oh, good. That's a good tip he gave you, man.
No doubt.
That's a good little assist.
All right. Well, listen. I know you got to run. I appreciate it. Enjoy the hoops this week. It is as good of a tune-up week, if you want to call it that, as you're going to find. And March Madness is here. Clark Kellogg. Appreciate it, Clark.
Yeah, my pleasure, Jeff. Great to be with you. See you down the road, man.
You too, man. Thanks, Clark.
Hello, I'm Dan Lothian, host of the Behind the Media podcast on the CLNS Media Network. Along with Jimmy Young, we dive into the biggest media headlines each week with honest, informed, and sometimes irreverent perspectives. It's not all serious. We deliver information and entertainment. As we like to say on Behind the Media, we find the interesting in media so you don't have to go searching for it. Listen to our podcast and get prepped for the next trip to the water cooler. Subscribe to Behind the Media wherever you get your podcast, or find us on www.clnsmedia.com.